Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yay. I cannot wait for people to meet you. So, you and I just completed 5 sessions of hypnotherapy. You are my personal hypnotherapist and brainwasher.
That's right.
That's right. And it was such a fascinating process. When we were done at the end, I was like, oh my gosh, you have to come on my podcast and talk to my people about how they can sort of rewire their brain, so to speak. So, but before we jump into it, do you mind telling me a little bit about how you got into this fascinating work and sort of how long you've been doing it and what kind of prompted you to start your practice?
Sure. My story kind of goes back to when I first got married in my early 20s. I started having some kids and I started having some health problems. And they were very concerning to me and I was very worried about them. And I started seeing doctors asking for answers. And that just kept going for many years. And so I was very thoroughly convinced that all of my problems were physically based and that all of the pains and the tremors and the shaking and the dysfunction and the fatigue and the exhaustion and the inability to do anything and the depression, all of it was physical. And then, about 3.5 years ago, my family experienced a really devastating event where our home flooded and we had to live in a hotel for 20 weeks while our home was actually, my husband lost his job, then our home flooded, then we lived in a hotel, and it was all very scary and strange and awful. And we made it through. We were just fine. And about 6 weeks later, new, incredibly difficult, serious symptoms started appearing in my life, like true panic attacks and serious pain all over. Like I thought I was having pains everywhere, not just in my chest, not just panic pains. And I was in the ER constantly. And I just had to figure it out. I was kind of desperate. And so I was combing the internet. I mean, I'd been to every expert there was, and there was never anything wrong with me, really, except for a little bit of thyroid stuff. So I came upon hypnosis and I thought, oh, that's hooey. That's cray cray. Those people are insane. That's not helping me. But then 6 months more went by and I was desperate. So I started reading more about it. And I decided, well, I think I should just become a hypnotist because I was basically too afraid to have anybody start poking around in my brain. So I decided I'll just fix myself. So I went and I got training and it changed my life, broke me down, built me back up. Suddenly all my stuff started getting better. Some of it went away right away. The panic attacks disappeared almost right away and other things got better and better. And so I was a certified hypnotist at this point, and I had always intended in becoming and helping other people. So through that event, I figured out that my emotional problems were also my physical problems. And that really there wasn't really anything wrong with me except for a little bit of thyroid stuff, which who knows where that came from. There's lots of good reasons why that could physically happen. And I became a true believer and kind of fell in love with hypnosis and I love it and I want to help everybody. And it's my firm belief that every 18 to 24-year-old should go through the process that you went through, to so that everybody can start off their life just healed and know who they really are and just move forward without all the blocks that we just tend to get as a matter of life. Everybody has a different story and everybody has different problems, but we all have them and we all need some help. And hypnosis is a fantastic for emotional problems. So that's my story. That's what I do.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I didn't actually know your story. And when you were talking about seeking medical attention, like you were having physical pain in a variety of ways, and that they're like, there's nothing wrong with you, but a little, it's basically what they're telling you is that it's all in your head, which I think women, especially, I don't know, it's a little bit triggering for me.
It is, but the problem was is no one ever actually said that to me. They just said there's nothing wrong with you. And so I didn't believe anything they said. And the other thing is, on the other side of that, just because it's an emotional problem doesn't mean it's not a valid or legitimate problem.
There you
And
go.
so there is a very, I think you're right, a connotation, a very negative one that it's that women are cray cray, they're crazy, they're just too emotional.
Emotional,
We
yeah.
could, that's a whole other subject and a whole other session of podcast, but just because you have an emotional problem doesn't make it not valid or not real. It is very real. My symptoms were very real. And one of the most triggering things in my life to happen was to try and describe my symptoms to someone and them say, well, I know that that's what you believe. I'm like, no, I'm actually in pain right now. And so you're right. That was a very insulting thing. So my perspective is that it is all real. It's all valid. Your experience, whoever is experiencing those symptoms, it's valid. Absolutely, emotional problems can lead to physical. In fact, I believe that's where all chronic illness comes from, is an emotional problem.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of literature out there. I mean, Louise Hay was famous for putting out literature that talked about, she would even give examples like breast cancer was like nursing an old wound. I was like, whoa, that's intense. Or when you have rashes on the outside, it's like something is like bubbling up under the skin, like something's gotten under your skin. We have all these funny sayings to relate emotion and like that connection between emotional pain and physical pain, right? But nobody has really, I don't think it's really mainstream to understand the mechanics of the whole thing. And the first time that you and I met, you were like, I'm like 12-step oriented. I've done therapy and I don't have any physical pain, but I'm trying to go to another level in my life, right? I'm trying to break through to the next level and I have exhausted my tools. And I feel like I need to go to the next level. And I'm learning all this neuroscience stuff. Dr. Andrew Huberman, I talk about all the time. I'm so obsessed. He's a neuroscientist, a neuro professor out of Stanford. And he's talking about like the default mode network and how our brains are wired and things like that. And so I was like, I found you and I was like, this woman needs to get under the hood and help me figure out like where is the mental block, right? How do I sort of rewire my brain? And you were talking about how like you validated the work I had done with the therapy and the 12 steps, but you sort of positioned it like, doing subconscious mind work is working inside out. Right. Whereas when you explain, and I was first, I was a little offended. I was like, what? I've been doing all this work that feels like deep internal work. But after I thought about it, I was like, doing subconscious work really is working inside out. It's getting to the root cause. And so now I'm totally obsessed with how can we help people identify their limiting beliefs and then reframe them. And do you have like, could you give a little background as to like what is the subconscious mind? Like how do these beliefs about ourselves develop, and then how we can start to I know it's a big question, but I eventually want to lead to the place of like how do we reframe our negative limiting beliefs?
Absolutely. I want to jump back really quick and just give all the listeners the name of Dr. Gabor Mate. He also talks
Oh
about
yeah.
how emotional stuff leads to physical dysfunction. So he's a really fantastic resource for his books are great.
He's
To
he's
answer,
big he's big in the recovery community.
oh,
Like
good.
he talks about how he talks about like addiction as it relates to ADHD and how it relates to trauma. He says not to ask why the addiction, he says ask why the pain. And I think most of us who grow into like addictive behaviors don't have a way to process these negative like trauma and stuff like that to to resolution. So yes, he's amazing. Well, I'll leave his books and stuff in the show notes.
Fantastic. So to answer your question, let's talk about, we call it the theory of, I think it's called the split mind theory. There are different parts of your mind, not your brain, right? We all know that there's physical parts to your brain, but we're talking about the mind, the way the mind functions. And so from my perspective and my philosophy, the way I work, there are basically three main parts. There's the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind. So the conscious mind is what we think of as being the very biggest part of us, but is actually probably the smallest part of us. It's the part of us that interacts. It's the outside of the onion, maybe is a good metaphor. It's the outside layer, but it's pretty thin. It's like the crust on the earth, really. There's not much there. But it is the part of you that's trying to find reasons for everything. It's analytical, it's logical. So when we do things and say things and behave certain ways, it's the part of us that's looking to justify and find reason for that behavior. The part of you that's actually controlling where you're going in life, your behaviors and the choices that you make, most of the time is the subconscious mind, which is basically the largest part of you. In fact, we hypnotists like to think of it as an unlimited storage file cabinet. No one's really ever filled up the subconscious mind. It's filled with all of the major significant events and the beliefs that came from those events that ever happened to you in your whole life. And during the course of hypnosis or self-hypnosis, we pull things out of that file cabinet and examine them and then put them back, hopefully changed and different. Not that we change the past, but we maybe change the way we believe about ourselves through that event. So this is where we're talking about limiting beliefs. Like, we can go through an event that makes us feel like there's something wrong with us. And my philosophy is that nobody has anything really wrong with them. So this is really the realm of what people are calling positive psychology. We're not looking to find diagnosis and find something wrong with you. What I do is help people realize what's right with them, and to encourage the growth, and to focus on that which is good and help that grow, so that they are more capable in life to do the things that they want to do. So as I was talking about the mind, there's the subconscious mind. That's all of the thoughts, feelings, emotions, and beliefs and habits that you have in life. And that's really what's controlling you, because every person that's ever lived really makes the choices that they make, that they believe are going to be the best for them. Your subconscious mind is always trying to help you move out of pain into pleasure. And sometimes behaviors, when we first do them, help us do that and eventually are no longer helpful. But that's what the subconscious knows how to do. This is what helps me get out of this pain. So that's why we have these habits that hold us back in life, because we don't know a better way. And our subconscious mind is really resistant to change, right? It's protected by the conscious mind. And there's actually something else that we call the critical factor, which helps the subconscious mind filter out things that disagree with it, whether they're true or not. In reality, it's filtering out, and it's only really acknowledging and using information that agrees with it to reinforce the behaviors that it already has. So if information comes into the subconscious mind through the senses, and it disagrees with that thought that I believe there's something wrong with me deep, deep down. And someone says to me, there's nothing wrong with you. You're fine. You can do it. My subconscious mind says, heck no, and just puts that into the little file that says, don't believe that. That's not true, but I have collected that data. And so it's very hard to change the beliefs in the subconscious mind, but in hypnosis, it's much, much easier.
Does that explain confirmation bias? Like, when you have a belief about something and then you either discredit or ignore all evidence to the contrary?
I would say yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
We see that in politics all the time. People make up their mind and then exclude or discredit all other information.
Right. Because you're looking for a specific bit of information. So anything that disagrees with that, unless you are really consciously trying to find other opinions or facts, you're not going to find that. And then you really won't believe it. But really, I think also that confirmation bias you're talking about, that's more of a conscious function as well, too. We're making a choice to not accept the information. What I'm talking about is an automatic process that just happens on the inside of you, out of your control, below the surface. When I say subconscious, what I mean is below your awareness to change. Right. Subconscious beliefs and habits are not, in a normal waking state, are they able to be edited even by the person that has them. They're very difficult to change. They're very, very resistant. It takes a very long time, a lot of repetition, which is why we see people spending long, protracted periods in therapy and counseling to fix these beliefs, because it's not a matter of just telling a person one time, it's okay. Yes, that, whatever they need to hear, you can't just tell them one time. It takes a lot of repetition, and they have to see that. They have to also see in their own life the truth more and more and more. And so if they're still getting injured or still expecting to get hurt, and they're still getting hurt or any other thing, that truth won't get reinforced, and therefore it will never supplant the other belief that's already there. It'll just get ignored.
And so the work of I'm jumping ahead just a tiny bit, but the work of hypnotherapy is to supplant those subconscious beliefs, right? Like when you and I did our work together, I was like, I need to be more confident. I think I need to be more confident, to sort of go to the next level and leave my corporate security behind and like blaze a new trail. I was like, I'm terrified. So I was like, can you fix me? So the hypnosis process is it about relaxing my brain to the point where you can kind of get in there and like take the idea out and then like because I remember like during parts of our sessions where we would examine beliefs or feelings that I had, and you would like reframe it for me and give it back to me. And I was like, and still to this day, and it hasn't been that long ago, but I'll, do like meditations, like the meditations that you gave me, and think, yeah, that little girl inside me, she was innocent. There was nothing ever wrong with her. Right. It was like I was just confused or assigned meaning to events that I thought that made me bad, like on
Yeah.
the subconscious. And so just taking those ideas out and re-examining and then putting them back in like a healthier way. Is that what hypnotherapy really is?
That's what a good hypnotist does and a good
Okay.
hypnotherapist does, but that's not what they all do. Because really, hypnosis is just that state of mind that you're in when your mind is more accepting of new information. And so, not to be fair, not every hypnotist is created equal. It really is a matter of what happens. What do they do once the client is in that state of hypnosis? So yes, the answer to your question for me is that is my goal. I want to help my clients examine the root,
Root
the beginning,
cause.
the very
Yeah.
first time they ever felt that feeling that something was wrong with them, or they weren't lovable, or the thing, whatever it is they're here to, with me to fix. We have to find the very first time that problem happened
Mm.
and examine the circumstances under which they started believing that, or and we might find it's true, right? So I also think my job is to validate um, emotions and beliefs that are based on
Mm.
accurate perceptions, because a lot of times in life people aren't doing that for each other, right? I think we're all kind of walking around a lot of the time looking for validation. Sometimes anger is valid.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes fear is valid, and so what I help my clients do is there's many different parts to what I do, but part of that is re-examining and fixing the misperception that the person has gotten about themselves, wherever, whenever, however it's affecting them. We fix the misperceptions, and they feel a lot better.
Mhm.
But I also help people um, get past or process, that's a better word, process or metabolize those emotions that are really bogging them down, that are based on accurate perceptions, but they're just too much. Like people have a reason to be angry sometimes, and it can be really debilitating, even if it is a valid anger, a righteous anger. And
Mhm.
so that can be very, very debilitating for people. That was what I had mostly when I went through the process and got so much better. I thought I had anxiety. I thought I had panic. I mean, I did, but really what at the germ of that was so much rage and anger over something that was really, really unfair. And so I realized that, yeah, like it was coming out as being shaky, unable to relax, but it really was anger. So, but I don't know what each
Rage.
client will have. They'll all have different ones.
You use the word rage. And I
Yes.
mean, that's really intense. So you had unprocessed, unmetabolized rage, and that was manifesting in health issues. Is that depression, anxiety, health issues? That's fair.
Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely true. And what you're touching on is sort of that secret language of feelings that I teach all my clients too. If we have any of those negative feelings too long, we end up feeling really frustrated and depressed about it
Make
because
us
we can't
sick.
change it. It's depressing.
Yeah.
It's hopeless. We can't change it.
Right. Yeah. No, it makes us sick. And the women I work with, it'll manifest in addictions. Right. So I've seen, food, like eating disorders, right. But mostly it's drugs. I work with women who have drug and alcohol issues, but it's the same thing. And then it has like this behavior component to it, and an inability to just process. I would, invalidating somebody's feelings. And that's the first thing I do when I work with somebody is, get the story, validate their feelings, but then we have to move on and sort of reframe that stuff. But I love how you're getting to you're like the mechanic under the hood, sort of deconstructing at the core, right? Like that is
Yes.
the tricky part. That
Yeah.
seems to be the tricky part of how to change somebody's subconscious. That's the core issue, right?
You're absolutely right. You're hitting on something else I would like to emphasize, which is that I can get anybody that wants to be in a state of hypnosis into a state of hypnosis. It's what you do with them afterwards that really makes the difference, whether they have
Mm,
long-term success in reaching their goals or not. And a lot of hypnotists will not know or be able to get to that root cause. They'll just give you good suggestions, and good suggestions are good, but it's like building
progress.
a house on a broken foundation. It'll eventually be eroded away, and that person will go back right to where they were before. So for instance, if a person came to me to quit smoking, which is a really great way to visualize what I'm doing, I help them figure out all the different things they need to know so that they don't ever have to feel like they need to smoke anymore, all the emotions that are wrapped up in that. But if I didn't, and I just said, hey, you don't want to smoke anymore, you don't want to smoke, maybe I even tell them, which I don't really do, some kind of aversion, like, ew, it makes you feel sick every time you do it.
Right.
Eventually they'd go right back to smoking, because if you don't fix that emotional cause for that addiction, there's no reason to stop. Eventually the need to have comfort and distract from the pain on the inside overcomes all the good suggestions I give. They're very temporary if they're not attached to permanent long-term changes in the way that we think and believe ourselves to be. So they're very
Absolutely.
temporary. So it's really what you do once you get the person in hypnosis that separates really real success from not.
How can you tell when somebody is hypnotized? Or maybe you can talk a little bit about the hypnotic process. To me, it felt like a really deep meditation, kind of.
You're absolutely right. It probably was very similar state of mind, very similar brainwave pattern, right?
Mhm.
Um, so, how can you tell? That's a good question. Trained hypnotists can tell if they've had good education. There are signs and signals to us. In fact, I don't know if you know it, but I did little tests all along the way to make sure that you were in state of hypnosis, but you didn't know it. And
No.
that's okay. You weren't supposed to know. And so now I just told everybody, I let that cat out of the bag, but that's okay, because it doesn't matter what you think and feel about it. Really, it's about what I know if you are in a state of hypnosis. So here's the trick. Hypnosis doesn't feel like anything. It can feel like a state of deep meditation for you, or for somebody else it feels like they're on the brink of falling asleep but they're still remembering everything. It really doesn't matter what you feel, because you can't tell if you're in hypnosis by how you feel as the person doing it. Like, does watching a good movie and becoming engrossed have a feeling? It really doesn't. And that's the state of mind that you're in when you really are in a good deep level of hypnosis. And so it does, you can't tell. The person following the directions of the hypnotist, they can't tell. The
No.
hypnotist can tell from the outside. There are a few physical external signs, and then there's some also other signs about, just cognitive stuff that when I ask a question or something, this happens, that I can tell. And I just know that. And I pay attention to those signs and signals. So if someone were to say, not be comfortable, or they would be emerging themselves from hypnosis because they didn't like what was happening, I'd be able to tell. And so it's really not important for the client to know
Right.
or I mean, I want them to believe, but I guess what I'm saying is I tell everybody right up front, you can't tell. So it's going to feel like at any moment you could just get up and walk out of here, because you could literally, I have no power. The subject, the client has all the power. They're deciding to follow my directions or not. It's not
Right.
magic. I am on all my social media platforms. What I've been talking about a lot lately is the entertainment industry just
Oh,
ruining the reputation of hypnosis. It drives me crazy. It's not magic. I don't
right.
have any power really. I just am creating opportunity for people to take advantage of that special property of hypnosis that allows them to change deep, deep beliefs
Yeah.
about the truth, and they can get better, right? But they have all the power. They're the ones doing the changing. I'm just creating an opportunity.
I think it's so funny, the whole stage hypnosis thing. I went to an event where they had a stage hypnosis guy come in for entertainment. But what I thought was so fascinating was after I went on stage. I couldn't do it. I was like, hell no, I'm not doing this. My friends were kind of egging me on, so I went up there, but I left the stage and then he worked with some other people and it was all fine and good. What was crazy was afterwards, he had to come down off the stage. Like the thing was over, and there was a woman who I guess she was so susceptible to hypnosis that he had to like work with her to get her to like come around, which I thought was really strange. What do you think that was about?
What I think that is you're right. A person that's really good at hypnosis is going to have, a great imagination, and they're
Mhm.
going to be very trusting. Those are two really great things. But stage hypnotists, they're not bad people, but they take advantage of those two properties and those two qualities to create entertainment value.
Entertainment,
And
yeah.
so what's happening is just the belief that she couldn't emerge herself, or that he had all the power, is the problem. Because in order to have a great stage show with hypnosis, you have to promote the belief that those people are really not in control of themselves, and they are the entire time. You know it because you didn't want to do it and you came down off the
Mm-mm.
stage,
I was
right?
like,
Because you're
nope.
like, this, I could leave at any time, and I don't want to look like an idiot, so I'm going to
Yeah,
leave.
I was
And
not going to do that.
it's fine. Those people that are dancing around like Elvis, and speaking in other languages that they don't know how to speak, are just, they are in hypnosis. It's legitimate, but they also know what's going on and are in complete control of themselves. And so the flourishes and the way that the stage hypnotist acts is what makes it entertaining. They act like
Mhm.
they have all the power. They act
Yeah,
like they're controlling those people. They're really not. They're just giving them suggestions, and
yeah.
those people are accepting those suggestions, just like what happens in my office every day.
I
It's
wonder if
just
somebody
for
that
show.
is, yeah, the lady that was, she was actually in the audience and he came down off the stage to kind of help her come around, which I thought was
Mhm.
really strange because she wasn't doing anything that the people on stage were doing. But I was like, oh, she must have been like really susceptible to, maybe she wanted to change or doesn't she have to want to?
Yeah. Yeah, she
Yeah.
definitely does. And she probably just, like I said, she was very trusting. She followed
Yeah.
directions, very imaginative,
Yeah.
probably has a big internal world and ability to get into a good movie and read.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the kind of talented person that we're always hoping to get in our offices. And so she just believed that here's a story. When I was a youngster, 10 or 11, I went on a cruise with my family, and my mom said to me, do not follow that hypnotist directions. Do not, right? You may
She
watch,
was
but
so
do not.
scared.
Like, she scared me to death, which is another reason why as an adult, I'm like,
Oh,
that hypnosis is
interesting.
hooey, because there's this belief that they have this power and control that they don't have. So,
Interesting. Yeah.
it's just that kind of a belief. And so I am trying to change that connotation that hypnosis have.
Yeah.
It is a
Stigma.
cooperative event that
Hmm.
happens where my clients can take advantage of my ability to create in them a hypnotic state, and also where I can lead them through a process where they can change the things that are holding them back and
Right.
remove those blocks. I'm just helping them move those boulders off the pathway. And but it really is transformational. It is really real. It's not just theoretical. We're not just talking there. The hypnosis makes all the difference. compared to things like talk therapy. It makes all the difference because the mind is in a different state. So I believe that it's absolutely essential, but you still have to know how to help that person when they're in the hypnotic state.
Yeah, I mean, I've known people who've been in like cognitive behavioral therapy for like years, years. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on the inside, but from the outside, it doesn't look like a whole lot changes. I mean, no judgment or anything, but wow.
Mhm.
And I know that everyone's working with something different. So,
Right.
but
And let me touch on too, it's not the answer for every person. There are people
right.
that are not good candidates for being in my program.
Okay.
So that's why I do those, 30 to 45-minute consultations at the beginning. There's
Mm-hmm.
specific set of the population will be really great and get really great results from hypnosis. And a lot of them could be the people that have spent a long time in all sorts of traditional counseling and cognitive behavioral therapy and all that. But there's people that it won't work for. And so it's not the answer to everything, but it is something that a lot of people try when they've tried everything else and nothing's worked. And suddenly it makes a huge difference in their life.
So my audience is primarily people who struggle with drugs and alcohol, and typically that's like it's a symptom of a deeper problem, right? And so a lot of the 12-step work, it's about sort of unraveling the past, right? Like coming to, getting, breaking out of the denial to what's actually going on, because we develop all these defense mechanisms to be in denial about our behavior. We have like a faulty dopamine reward system, like all that stuff. So there's addiction, and alcoholism it's a big ball of yarn to unravel. But what I found is like once the primary, when somebody is off alcohol, off drugs, and then they're stable, that's a good time to go deeper. What types of things are really good for people, like things to work on for people? Is it like trauma? Is it self-image? Is it like people who's switching addictions is common? So people who go from drugs and alcohol to then workaholism, or they switch to food, or they switch to exercise. I keep thinking that if I switched to exercise, that would not be a big problem, but that's another episode, I suppose. But who, like for people that are in recovery, like what are some good things that what am I trying to say? What are some topics that would help them with hypnosis to be productive? You
Okay.
can get a question
So,
out of that.
um, I'm formulating a thought in my brain. I'm buffering. Sorry. So
I know that was a big question. I was like, these people, like the primary thing is over, but like we present with like anger, like a lot of people have anger, or they still suffer with anxiety and depression. Are those things that hypnotherapy works well for?
yes, absolutely. I actually wanted to step back. You were talking about how, there is, it is been stated, that addiction is a disease. I'm not refuting that at all. You mentioned something called like that faulty dopamine uptake thing, right? What we're
Yeah.
talking about is a physical problem, which
Yes.
is what I thought as well that I had. Like I did a lot of tests and a lot of things. Um, but the thing is that people that aren't addicted to substances probably have that problem too, but aren't addicted. And so what I believe is going on is that the the emotional trauma or the negative core beliefs, the negative emotions, whatever those, it could be one of those three things, or maybe even other things, are really what is taking you out of the realm of I'm coping okay to now I have a coping mechanism that is maladaptive.
Mm-hmm.
So if you heal the emotional mental problem, then the physical things that we all have, we're all not perfect copies, right? We all have all these genetic, problems, won't be as big a problem. We'll be able to handle them, be able to cope with those physical issues. So when I was under extreme emotional distress, I had a bunch of physical symptoms that were,
Mm.
there was things going on, physical things that once I heal, like the easiest thing to see my life is that my hair started growing in thicker again, right? All the stress was making my hair fall out. That's just a
Oh my
tiny
God.
little drop in the bucket over my body works better now that I'm not under emotional distress. And so
Right.
if you have something like you believe you have like a faulty dopamine processing, you're methylating wrong, or you're processing your dopamine too fast, or you don't have enough, or your receptors are all filled up. And I don't know all that stuff, but I'm guessing it's a lot of that stuff. You'll function better and probably won't need that substance to feel better if you fix the emotional problem. In fact, why
Right.
would you even need
Mm-hmm.
to use a substance to feel better if you already felt better on the inside?
Exactly.
Everything works better when the emotional negative causes are removed and we are who we are supposed to be.
Yeah, I like the idea when you said metabolize those feelings. Like in my mind, it's like I didn't grow up with a lot of good coping skills, and so I developed some unhealthy ones. But then when I finally got into recovery, it was largely about emotion management, like metabolizing all the trauma, all the past stuff, and then learning how to cope with my feelings from that point forward. Right. And I know a lot of people in recovery who are like, okay, the primary stuff is done, but they want to go deeper, right? They struggle with romance, finance, or fitness. It's like, or a combination of all three, right? It's like, and so in my mind, getting back to like fixing the core issue of, raising your level of self-esteem and, like reframing the past. Um, and we used a lot of we called them recognitions.
Yes.
Yeah. And really it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Starting to recognize the truth. So
Yeah.
yeah, recognizing the truth is like there was nothing wrong with me, right? Like I'm just like a normal human being. This is within the realm of normal. And the self-love component was huge in transforming. um are there other, besides like like I think it's so important to do like the work that we did together, where you had like you were like the guide, like you took me into the subconscious, we looked at all that stuff, and then you reframed it and you guided me back out, right?
Mhm.
And then so the daily, and you had me meditating like 3 times a day during this process. Is that part of like the neural plasticity? Is that part of the brain rewiring?
There is a lot happening when you do self hypnosis multiple times a day. So I'm going to do a little correction here and let everybody know that what I had you doing wasn't meditation.
Okay.
Meditation and self hypnosis are two very different things. They have
Yes.
similar brain waves. They actually have similar positive effects on the body, but they are very different about what is actually going on inside the mind while you're doing it.
Mhm.
So meditation is generally um, thinking about a single thought or something
Mhm.
to the exclusion of all other things. And what I had you doing was actually thinking about a thought and allowing any other thought to also come. So they're two very different things. But what's happening in the process of hypnosis really is the kind of that I taught you, which is a very special kind. It's very unique, mind, body, and spirit approach.
Mhm.
Is that we are doing some reprogramming. So everybody knows we give ourselves suggestions all day long. You're doing it in a state of hypnosis, so your mind is more malleable, more able to accept that truth. We're also when you're putting in a positive statement, you're also, I think, rehearsing good results. Right, you're vibrating
Yes.
with these wonderful thoughts and feelings, and so what happens is you are the word is reinforcing good in your
Mhm.
life, right? So
Yeah.
when you do that enough, you have good results, right? So I like to tell everybody, and I think I must have talked about it with you, but no more negative self-talk. That's
Oh
something that's
yeah.
come a lot up
You
a
were
lot
like, no
lately.
more.
See, there's 68 to 80,000 thoughts a day in
Mhm.
everyone's head, and most of 80% of those are repetitive. We
Negative.
had them before, and then most of those are negative, right? And so if you aren't making a concerted effort to edit that and put positive back in, what's going to happen is you get what you expect. Psychologists and hypnotists know that what you focus on grows.
Yeah.
So you have to make a concerted effort to put positive in so that you can get positive out, right? So your level of just enjoyment of life is going to go up just by putting good in. It's not going to change
Awesome.
anything out here, but you'll just be better. You'll feel better. You'll feel more strong. You'll have more energy just by focusing on positive things. So that's what affirmations really are. But when you do it in a state of hypnosis, it becomes programming.
Mhm.
And so you're programming good, you're expecting good, just all sorts of really great things start to happen. So it is important to do it many times a day, especially at first, because the process that I do, which is very, very special and unique, not traditional self-hypnosis where you just sit down and give yourself a thought. So what it is I just lost my train of thought. So that's
The
okay.
No, it's okay, because I know exactly where you're going with this, because when you had me doing the recognitions, you're right. It wasn't meditation. It was, I think I say the recognition, and then I wait for the echo.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what is my subconscious mind presenting? What feelings or images or echo is coming up for me? And then I say it again. And so it's neutralizing those negative thoughts. And so, yes, the difference between meditation and hypnosis is a really important distinction to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was super good. Listen, I could talk to you forever about this, and well, we might have to do another round at some point. But is this kind of hypnosis something that you can? I already know the answer to this, but tell me, can people hire you and do this work remotely? Is that still effective?
Yes, it is. In fact, it can be more effective because people can do it from the safety and privacy of their own home, which can
Yeah.
only help them get better results because they're more relaxed and able to do the work. So, yes, absolutely. I see clients locally in my office. There's some people that really feel like they want to come in, and also feel people, even local people, that don't want to come in because of the current situation. So, I absolutely do online sessions every day.
Nice.
And it is just as effective, in fact, maybe more so.
Maybe more so. That makes sense. If I could be in an environment where I feel totally in control of the environment and I feel safe, I could see how that would. I was like, I need to come into your office, and
Yeah. And a
you need
lot of
to.
people feel that way.
Yeah, I was like, you need to lay hands on me and do the healing.
Yeah.
That was it's been really fascinating, and it's very cool to, I've been talking a lot about it with the people in my world. It feels like there's always more work to do. And I always liken this type of self-care and this type of work to, like, you wouldn't go to the gym once and expect to be in shape forever, right? Or you wouldn't eat one salad and think I'm good, right? So I fully recognize that this is a ongoing process that I need to continue to nurture this process. So, but I am just I thank my lucky stars that I met you. I think you're amazing. I just love the work you're doing, and it has helped me tremendously. So,
Oh,
thank you for being super amazing.
you're welcome. Thank you so much for all those wonderful compliments. I think you're amazing too.
Thank you. And maybe we'll have to do this, but again, tell the listeners, what's the best way to reach out to you? I'll leave links and everything in the show notes, but what's the best way to reach you?
The best way to reach me is to just go to my website and click on the schedule button, and you can just, right from the comfort of your smartphone or your computer, schedule a consultation with me if you're interested in working with me. So it's lorenzhypnosis.com. So my name is German for Lawrence, Lorenz as in zebra. So hard to say and understand how it's spelled. Lorenzhypnosis.com.
Okay.
But I'm also on Facebook at Expert Kimberly Lorenz. I'm on TikTok at
You're doing TikTok?
I am doing some TikToks. It's super fun. You got to join me there at Expert Kimberly Lorenz there, and also on YouTube, Kimberly Lorenz, the worthiness expert.
Ooh, the worthiness expert, girl.
Yeah.
That is the core. I love it. Well, listen, thank you so much. You've helped me tremendously, and I've been telling all my friends about you, and all my podcast listeners now know about you too. I hope
Woo
everybody
woo.
reaches out to you. Well, thank you so much. You have a great day, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.